We want so much to be part of the action, to be doing alongside you what you are doing in our world. And we thank you for Rachel and Dave and for their lives and for their ministry, and we're looking forward to what you will say to us through them tonight. So we pray that you would have your way, glorify your name. May Jesus Christ be exalted and lifted up, and we'll thank you in your holy name. Amen. Greet each other before you are seated tonight. As I mentioned, Betty and Bruce and I have been at Princess Gardens this afternoon. We go once a month, and I'm sure Betty and Bruce feel this way sometimes too. You really wonder if you're accomplishing anything, because there's varying cognitive levels, and some folks just aren't obviously registering. You get lots of nodding off, I guess is the best way to put it. Although that happens in worship 1 and worship 2 here sometimes too. But here I go into the reception desk there this afternoon, and the young woman at the desk, Emily, says to me, one of the people that usually comes to chapel is very ill, and her family wonders if you would check in on her in her room after the service. And I said, sure, I'll be happy to, especially because the family had requested that. And lo and behold, it's Nora. Remember always the very friendly lady that sat on my left, right on the very front, always a great singer. She's fractured her back. Osteoarthritis, it snapped. And I don't know how she'd recover. And she was just so thrilled that I would come. And, you throw the seed on the ground and you have no clue what's going on. Obviously, God was doing something. And so I kind of felt that's kind of been an image for the whole day for me today. Just so many wonderful things that God has said to us and in us today. And tonight is the capstone of the event, because we've got Rachel here and Dave, and great to have Rachel's mom all the way from Through the Roof. What a great name for a church. Through the Roof in Flinton, Ontario, and Ruthie's here tonight as well, our own Ruthie and Michael, of course. So Rachel's starting off, and so that's the word I'm given. Rachel begins, so let's welcome Rachel tonight and her mom.
Well, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be here tonight. My name is Rachel, and I'm a student at Master's Bible College here in Peterborough. And one of the courses that we did was cross-cultural studies. So instead of having us sit in classrooms for long hours, they decided to send our class to the Dominican. So tonight I'm going to share some things that we did as a team while we were there, and some different things that we experienced. And then at the end, I would also like to share something that I've brought back from the Dominican that I'll always carry with me, and then I'd like to share it with you and how it's affected my life and my relationship with God. So I guess I can look up here. I think this worked. Maybe. There we go. All right. So Everyday Ministries was the team that we worked with. This is 3 families, 2 from Canada and 1 from the States. The Thomases, the Larsons, and then Ryan DeWeird, who is a single man living in the Dominican. And together they have started up an organization that comes behind Dominican pastors and Dominican leaders and helps provide them with resources so that they can reach and evangelize the people in the Dominican, and help spread the gospel and help them do what God has called them to do. So that's who we worked with, and who took care of where we lived and our food, and took us on the trucks to all the different sites and churches. So I thought that was important to share. Whoops. There we go. This is the entire team out in the backyard. So in total, there were 78 students and about 12 more mature adults that came along with us, and they've went there before, so they go every year, so they knew things and helped us out and organized everything. This was my team. We divided up into 3 different teams. This was Team Sarah. I'm down there in the yellow. And this is the most random bunch of people you could have ever put on a team together. But it was amazing how when we all came together, we just all clicked. We all helped each other. You know, when one person was having a down day and like their back hurt from shoveling all day, like we just helped each other out. And by the end of the week, we were really close and didn't really want to come home. These were the other teams. So we had Team Justine, which was another group. And then here, Team Esther. So I think they were probably a random bunch of people too, but I won't speak for them. This is probably one of my favorite nights in the Dominican. Actually, we had 2 different nights. We went to 2 different Bible colleges that they have for Dominican students. And when we were there, we had an interpreter, and we were able to ask each other questions. So some of the questions would be like, what are some of the challenges you face as a teenager or young adult in the Dominican? And then they'd ask us the same questions. So we really got to know like different things that they struggle with or different things they struggle with as like a pastor or a pastor that's training. One of the biggest issues was juggling a job and education, because that's the only way they can do it. They have to work just as hard as they work in school, outside in like a field and a job to support them, and oftentimes support their families as well. But after we had like our question and answer session, we each paired up. So one Dominican student with one Canadian student, and we prayed for each other. And we had no idea what each other were saying. There was no interpreter, but we were praying, and you could just feel like the Holy Spirit. And like, honestly, this is what I think heaven is going to look like. You know, different people with different cultures and different languages coming and praying together and just worshiping God. And this was probably my favorite night. We also had a baseball tournament. This community that the baseball tournament was in was a very rough community. When we were there, we had a lot of people have things stolen, so like bags and sweaters. Like you can't leave anything laying around. The people there were, you know, rougher, especially with the children, like disciplining and stuff like that. But when we were there, this was like a big attraction, you know, like 80 white people coming to play baseball with Dominican. White people there are called gringo. So that was a word we heard a lot on the streets. We were gringos. And so that was a huge attraction. So people just poured in. And while we were there, at the end, we all came together, and one of our students shared him a testimony and also encouragement for him. He's an athlete, and his devotional or message was bring your gospel to the game, because he became a Christian through sports. He didn't find God in a church. Through a few of his team members were Christians, and they shared the gospel and shared love with him, and through that he became a Christian and knew God, had a relationship with God. And so he shared this with them and encouraged them to always never leave what you believe or your faith you have in God at home, because you never know who it'll affect. And then after this, one of the team members on the Dominican team, he's a young man my age. He's been diagnosed with leukemia. And so we all gathered together in this big baseball field, you know, Dominicans and Canadians all together, and we just prayed for healing for this young man. I think he was having a doctor's appointment that week that was going to tell a lot. So I don't know what the outcome was, but I believe that God has his hands on this young man's life. And it really shook up the community too, just the unity that was displayed. This was our construction site. So each missions team had a different site that they were responsible for. This was set in a rural community. When we got there, the first sentence that was said to us by a Dominican was, "The pastor here has a big vision." So this church is huge for the area that it was in. And the big pile of, it looks like dirt in the doorway, and all around is, they call it cuiche, which is, I believe it's pasteurized coral, and it is very heavy to shovel. And we had to pickaxe and shovel that all day to level out the floor in the parking lot as well. So this is more the parking lot. There's lots of mountains of it. One thing that I want to draw attention to is the one picture with the White House in the background. That is the neighbor of the church that we were building. They were a family, a non-Christian family, and I ended up talking to one of the, well, we had a translator, one of the women that lived there, and she started sharing her story, how she's a 24-year-old woman, and she wants to have a baby, but the doctors have told her that she'll never be able to. And so I told her about my older sister's story, Hannah. Her and her husband for a long time wanted a baby, and they couldn't have one, and they had some implications, but they kept praying, and they had faith, and they kept asking God and praying. And then a year and a half, they had a baby, my nephew named Nolan. And so I told her their story, and then after, she's like, will you pray for me? Will you pray that I will have a baby? So I prayed. This is all through the translator. And then after I was done praying, she turns to the translator and says, I love what she said. She says, when I have this baby, not if, but when I have this baby, I'm going to bring it to your church and show your church what God did in my life. So that, it was powerful. And then the mother of the 24-year-old woman came out, and I guess she was struggling with some sickness and asked for healing. So we prayed for healing with her. And this is all a non-Christian family. And then the father comes out. He couldn't hear, and so he asked for healing as well. So I prayed for the two women, and then one of the men that were with me prayed for the older gentleman. That's one story. So this is just how a certain construction site or coming to an environment or a baseball clinic can affect a community, can affect people. Another one, a guy in our team, he ended up having the opportunity to go into a Dominican's home, and there was a young boy there who couldn't walk for 4 years. And so they prayed over him, and right after they finished praying, he got up and walked. So major healing went on, but the faith and the encouragement that just one building project did for this community, I mean, we see building projects in Canada all the time, but just this one encouraged the entire community and changed many families' lives. I thought that was amazing. This is inside the church, so you see pickaxing, and I believe it's called piñete, the cement that they're putting on the wall, and they're able to hire local Dominicans to help, so that helped them as well. And the one picture has a little boy holding the shovel. We asked one of the Dominicans, like, how old do kids start helping out on the job site and learning different things? And his response was at 5. They'll start learning how to piñete or shoveling or certain trades. So by the time they're a teenager, they know how to do it. They know how to build. They know their trade that they've been taught. At the job site, there was lots and lots and lots of beautiful children. We actually had to designate certain people on the team to look after the children. Well, not just look after them, but interact with them, get to know them, and also so that they had something to do, because there was many of them. They're on our bus right there, and I'm pretty sure at one time there was probably 30 kids either on or hanging off of the bus. So it was, and they were really beautiful and friendly children, and a very friendly community. This would be some of the homes that these kids in this area would come from. In the Dominican, there's different kinds of home, like in the city area, there's nicer homes, and they're all barred up. So all the windows have bars on it. The house we stayed in was bars everywhere. You'd shut the door, then you'd pull a gate shut and then lock that, and then you'd shut the big barred gate in the end. So it was everything was barred. One of the missionary kids that we worked with, he wants to write a book called My Life Behind Bars. So I thought that was very interesting and very ironic, I guess. So the houses here in this community they're shacks. I was able to go into a few. The cement floor, they maybe had one chair and they had a kitchen area. So it was a very community. Also very dark because there wasn't lights. So this is what they lived in. We did an activity. Our professor wanted to let us experience, he called it cultural immersion. So he gave us a list in Spanish of things that we needed to buy, and then a pastor's name and the church that he pastored at. And he said, this is your list. We are in groups of 8, I believe. Go and buy these things. He gave us 1,000 pesos. Go and buy these things, put it in a basket that you buy, and deliver it to this pastor. That's all we got. And, oh, that's not true. We did get a translator that couldn't speak English. So it was challenging. We had to ask around, first of all, figuring out what we were buying and making sure that people weren't paying or asking us to pay a lot of money for something that wasn't worth that, and then we wouldn't have enough for the rest of the things on the list. Our translator that didn't speak English did step in and talk to one of the market people to make sure that what was happening was what was supposed to. And then, so we got that. That was the easy part. Getting to the pastor's home was the hard part. After 2 hours of walking and asking directions and constant going that way. Keep going that way. The joke was that we were in Haiti. We finally did find and the first thing they said when we called was, "Oh, you made it." So they obviously didn't think we were going to make it, but when we went in, the people there were very hospitable. One thing that you'll hear is my home is your home. So they are very hospitable. They'll invite you in. They'll give you a meal. They'll give you food and something to drink. They treat you like family and with open arms. And I thought that spoke to me a lot, just having people just come and hug you and sometimes kiss you, and you didn't know who they were. This is my last slide, and I picked this one last because, well, first of all, each mission team went to a different church. So on Sundays, we would have a 3-hour church service in one church. In the evening, we'd go to another church and have another 3 to 4 service. And you don't that child would have to come home and teach their siblings, or they would rotate. So one year, one child went, another year the next child went. So there's different kinds of poverty in different areas.
Composition of the team, were everyone from Eastern, from
Masters? Yes, we were all in the course, Master's course, Cultural Studies.
So there's 60, what do you say, 60 kids from Masters?
There's 80 in first year, okay. And then altogether at Masters there's about 160 students.
That's really great.
But yes, 78 of us, I believe, 78 students, all first year in the cross-cultural course.
Other questions?
In Dominican? Yes. Well, a Bible, yes. We actually had a ball hockey tournament, which I didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, and it was at the University of Nagua. So, and it was actually a really nice university. So, yep, there was one in the city. Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, Dave, wasn't the first trip that we made to the Dominican, wasn't that to... There was a little town called Breton, I think very close. Okay, so it wasn't Nog. Close, I think. We may have gone to church one Sunday up in Nog. Go. And we're still seeing that impact even as recently as tonight. Well, what can I say about Dave Price? We all know him and love this man. The problem we have now is that Dave Price is in Grant Sigsworth's sights. Grant Sigsworth is our national visa coordinator for the Canadian Church, Canadian Free Methodist Church, relative to Haiti. He has been given the assignment of being the Canadian representative to the international committee that is putting together the Rebuild Haiti thing. And Dave, Phil, and Barb Raby, of course, are on that list too. And Grant Sigsworth is part of the Whitby Church. And a very, very gifted person. He's a PhD, actually. He's a doctor. But you would not know that from the way he is such a common, he and Olwen are just beautiful people. So Dave's going to come and tell us about the Haiti run. I don't think it'll be the last run to Haiti based on the emails that Dave keeps getting. And so let's again listen carefully and enjoy what Dave has for us.
Well, it's kind of nice to be up here again. I really am fortunate to be able to follow behind Rachel. That's really one of the things that I've noticed in ministry in the neighboring countries, that I get the opportunity to watch young people really flourish. You really see them grow in the mission field, and so I'm really thankful to God that He's placed me in those positions many times. One question I did want to ask Rachel was, did you see any effects of the earthquake that they had a couple of years ago? It was very devastating on Haiti, but you never hear anything about the Dominican side.
There were a lot of buildings that were like, well, I guess toppled over, like their main structure were up, but there was a lot of damage to them, or like a roof had completely like collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of just like the frame, it was left just like that. So I don't know if that was effects from the earthquake, but there was lots of them all over. So yeah, I would say there was damage that is still there, but I do think that in some cases they were able to repair them quicker than Haiti.
Okay.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, it's amazing that on one island there can be so much difference. On the Haiti side, it used to be very satanic. Well, we didn't see any of that when we were there this time. We're in around probably where Rachel was almost 22 years ago now. That's hard to believe that all that time's gone by. But anyways, as she was saying, the people there in Dominican, as well as Haiti, are so friendly that you'd almost think that you'd get off a plane from a long trip. You'd gone away and you're just coming home, because that's how they all greet you. And so anyways, it is good to hear how the Dominican is doing and flourishing. So I just want to open with a little bit of a prayer, and then I can start in with my story. Heavenly Father, I just pray that you would use me and the words of my mouth that would touch the hearts that are here tonight. The people that are here tonight are not here by accident. They're here from your calling and your choosing. So we just ask that you would work among us and through us to be better and to enlarge your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. God gives me different things when I've been on the road lately. And one of the things that I want to share with you tonight is something he just gave me recently. Sometimes he gives us little visions, and we know that they're just for ourselves, but this one I really felt was meant for tonight. And so I want you to, this is a little exercise, I want you to hold out your hands in front of you and just take a look in them. Think of all the things that God has blessed you with in the last month, weeks, years. Now, sometimes trials come along the way, so they're in there as well. Now, flip them over. What can you hold now? You can't hold anything that way, can you? So you've released it into God's care, haven't you? Now flip them back. Now you're ready to receive more of his abundance, aren't you? So he really impressed that on me the last couple of weeks, that I should share that, and I thought tonight would be a great time to share it with you. On to the Haiti trip. We had, I hope this is going to work as good as Rachel's. I'm doing a little bit different thing here. Many people came together for this trip. I think in all there were 6 different churches, 4 people from out west, 5 from the Whitby and Pickering area, and 1 from St. Catharines, and 1 from Michigan. And you talk about a varying area of everybody into different things. And as Pastor had said, that Grant had tried to pick and choose for this group, and I don't know how he could have, because everybody seemed to be matched for a task even beforehand. So anyways, I noticed this is going off here for a second. Okay. No. Anyways, I'll have to reset that. So we're all there for different tasks, and we all have the same goal, to be used by God in different areas. Some of these shots that you're seeing right now are some of the kids that I had the opportunity to meet with. I had 4 sponsored children that I was taking knapsacks and that for. I believe this is Holly's young lad that the Sunday school sponsors. I was able to meet him. No, that's Betty's. Sorry, that's Betty's young lad. I can tell by the background, because Holly's young lad was at the house that we were staying in when I got home. So this is Betty's young lad here. I'm kind of jumping out of place because it's going on without me. Diverson is 10 years old. He's only in level 6. They call it level 6. I guess grade 6 pretty well here. His father's out of work, and mother is a food vendor. As you can see, he's being well cared for. He was brought actually to the work site, and I believe this was around 11 o'clock in the morning. And let me see, he was brought by his teacher, and he looks just in excellent shape. The kids down here, even though they get very little to eat, you wouldn't know it by them. They seem to be healthy and laughing all the time. So anyways, this is Deverson and his teacher, and they came on a motorbike. They ride like I like to ride. So, and he was only, I think they were only about a half an hour from the work project. So they didn't have to come very far, other than through all the traffic and stuff like that in the middle of the day. The roads there are still under construction in quite a few of the places, because when they got the earthquake, they also got flooding in a lot of areas that were 12 feet deep. So, you know, you could be on a second floor of a building and still be walking around in sludge. Holly's young lad, I think it should be next. Yeah. Pardon me? Well, was he already up there? Okay, so this is a picture of the work site here. Like I say, we were able to meet. I was able to meet 2 of the 4. We thought maybe there would be a third one that would come in, because according to the districts, he wasn't that far away either. But we didn't get a chance to meet him. So those packages were left back in Port-au-Prince when we returned, and they were going to get them to the missionaries in the area, and they would make sure that they got to the children, sponsored children. The work site actually begins like a normal day for us would be. The ladies would be up at 4 to 4:30 in the morning. We were trying to hit the site by 7, so they would put breakfast together and get some kind of a lunch together for us, so we could be out the door and have the truck packed and be on the road by 6:30 at least. 7 o'clock we would be on site, and the Haitians would already be there. In Haiti, it's daylight about 5 o'clock in the morning, and it is pitch black by about 5:30 at night. So you do have a certain sort of window to travel in, but it's not safe to travel at nighttime because of the roads and because of the looting and stuff like that that's going on there. It's still it's a country that's always been in poverty, and with the earthquake and all the flooding, it just makes things that much worse. You can see the site here. The group that was in before had taken that stone and had built it up, and that is about 3 feet high up off the ground compared to where the original church is that we're working out of. It's 3 feet high off the ground. So that's where we're going to put our building. As you can see, they've got a little bit of rebar, but they've got no outside forms done yet. So we had to form it all in when we first got there. Now this thing's not going to work again. Anyways, so when we got the wood and we got it all formed together, then we could go ahead with the cement mix. And when we arrived on the Monday morning at the site, we were there on Saturday. This is a group of guys that showed up for work. They all were looking for jobs of some kind, just to put some food on the table. Of all the guys, we hired about 10 that would work with us through the week. Again, this is another picture of one of the classrooms that were formed, ready to go. And here we are in full swing. The guys with the baseball caps, those are 2 young lads from Pickering and Ajax. And we had a lot of low spots in some of the classrooms that had to be filled in. So these guys were breaking rock up. And again, this rock is as big as the top of this table, and they were pounding on them with sledgehammers and pickaxes, whatever they could to break this into rubble so they could fill in the holes. And there's one of the lads there. I believe that's Cameron. And so once we got all the holes in that level, then we could go ahead with the cement mix and pouring. This guy here was just dynamite. He was always on the cement mixer. And I would see him. I mean, we're talking about weather that's 32 to 38 in the daytime, and you could just see the sweat rolling off him. So I would call him over, and I'd duck his head in the 45-gallon drum of water, cool him down. And he's only about this high, so I wasn't too worried. So him and I got along tremendous. Most of the guys there did. The two ladies that you just saw by the drums there, they had a little hut at the back of the church, and they were hired through the week to do the food preparation. There you see one of them there. She wasn't busy with her housework and that, so she saw an avenue to get into, and she just grabbed pails of sand and gravel, and she jumped in as well. Just so much sunshine. Yeah, we didn't get a cloudy day. It was hot there. It was hot there, and like I say, the ladies were just fantastic. Now these two ladies here, they were hired by the group to cook meals for the Haitian workers, and somehow the translation got mixed up somehow, so they ended up cooking lunches for all of us. I think the second day we were there, and I mean the girls would pack a lunch. That's one thing that was much different about this trip and any other trip. We felt it safer to take our own food with us, so we couldn't take as many cosmetic stuff to leave behind as we would have liked to. But they felt that us eating proper and getting the proper nutrition, because you didn't know what you were going to get down there, right? Even the water down there we couldn't drink. We had to have distilled water. The water down there, if you drank it, you could be dead in 4 hours. There's so much cholera and everything in the water. The people down there, they gradually got it into their system, and it works fine. But who knows down the road what it's going to cause? I mean, all kinds of damage to their stomachs and livers and everything else. So these guys would load all this stuff by pails, carry it all over the cement mixer, and mix it in. Again, this is a piece of a form that's done there, ready to go. That's one of the first shots of the floor being poured there. Some places in the floor were anywhere from 4 to 8 inches thick of cement, just because it had to be brought up level in certain areas. We had a transit there, so we made sure that everything was level, so that when we put the block on, everything would work properly. You can see there with a 2x4 across there, they're leveling the cement. This is Pastor Brian from out west, from Saskatchewan. This girl here now this is, again, it's going through these too quick. That girl that was in the background there a minute ago with the pastor, she would stop by probably 3 days in a row. She stopped by. She could speak perfect English. She was 12 years old. She's just a bright kid, just enthusiastic, eh? But I think that's what she was doing, was she was looking for someone to give her money because they didn't have enough to eat at home. She was very neat, because she was only about 12 years old. She would be about the same age as my granddaughter, and I thought, well, maybe that's why God was bringing her along at that time there, was just so that I could have someone to chit-chat back with, and she spoke excellent English. Again, it wasn't long, and we were rolling away with the cement. We figured that we poured 40 cubic yards of cement. The building has a horseshoe shape, and there you can see the guys there wheeling the stuff around. And 40 cubic yards, that's a lot of cement. Down there, their cement bags are 94 pounds. 94 pounds a bag. Up here, I think they're 52. So when you grab one of those, boy, that's a lot to carry back, because any material couldn't be left out overnight. So it had to all be hauled back into the church. Just because of thievery, they need to eat, so they would sell this stuff somewhere else. This is a shot outside of where we're staying. This is a nice little river that's running through here. As you can see, the block cages on both sides. Okay, up there, the water was anywhere from 12 to 14 feet, and that's up high. That's up in the higher country. It was 12 to 14 feet above the road. I don't think the next shot shows, but there was a storage container that came down through where we were staying, and I don't know if you've ever seen one of those storage containers, but you're probably talking about a ton of weight with nothing in them. This thing just come down, and there were 4 pillars that were holding a garage up, and it just come down through there, and they were solid cement. They were probably like that, of solid cement and rebar, and this container just shaved two of these pillars right off, so it's just hanging in midair on one pillar. And again, that's higher up. That's higher up in the area. When we were traveling to Des Moines, I just wanted to stop this for a second. When we were traveling to Des Moines, we were traveling on all brand new highway, and Des Moines probably about 3 hours from where we were staying. No, an hour and a half from where we were staying. And they were saying that the water there was 12 feet in most places. So what they did was they built this brand new road. It's 14 feet high, higher than the existing road. So you can imagine how much construction fill and stuff that they had to put in this thing to bring it up to that level. And we traveled on that road 4.5 hours from Port-au-Prince all the way up to where we were, and then it went on from there. So you talk about mega. And again, for a country that didn't have anything, we saw a few big excavators and stuff like that down there, but to take out all this rubble and stuff was just something else, and to put in this road. The reason I sort of shot this is every time we go on an excursion, we always find something that's really funny. Well, you'll see this pump. This is a water pump, and it goes down to plug into the main system, and it's run on electricity. And you'll see a yellow wire there, and you'll see a black wire to the foreground. Okay, and that's how you hook up the power. You just hook it up real quick, so you don't get electrocuted. Well, I'll show you why this is. I'll show you why this is so funny now. Okay, you'll get a real laugh at this. This is how this guy's going to prime this thing with it plugged in this next video. Here he is. He's priming it. Now you can imagine when the water's spilling over the top of this pump, his eyes would light up a bit. I didn't get a chance to experience that, but I guess I could have been. And again, we would take that pump in each night just so it wouldn't disappear. The guy proceeded to go and do that. And the blocks are what they call semi-solid. So on the bottom end of them, they have a little bit of cement. So you have to smash that cement out for the hole. So the cement you put on to hold them together goes all the way through to the next block and seals it up. This is Dale from St. Catherine's, and that was one of the children that he sponsored down there. He got a chance to meet him. This is the block work in the front there. It's 5 blocks high all the way around. And then what you do is then you form a steel cage to join it all together, pour it, and then you can go up with the other 5 blocks and put your windows and that in. And again, we put steel in between the blocks here and there, just as extra support. They're doing something interesting too. There was a block wall around the church. I don't know if I've got it on here or not, but if we thought maybe it was an existing wall, and what they're going to do is they want to enlarge the church by about 12 feet on each side. So they've laid this block wall, and what they're going to do is they're going to go up with a block wall and actually build a new church over the old one, and then tear it down inside, so the church will be always used. I think there's 6 classrooms of kindergarten and grade 1 kids there right now that's housing. This new building will be 8 classrooms in all, and the team that got back in early January had finished up to the roof line, and my last report was that 2 classrooms are at present with roofs on them. I believe your dad, Rachel, and your sister are down there right now, and I think they're finishing off the rest. They've taken a couple of welders, and they're going to weld in the doors and the windows, and she'll be ready for business. This went together really, really good. These block layers were just excellent. That's a good shot there from the top. It's funny because usually you have 10 or 12 guys working, and you'd probably have 15 or 20 overseers on the sidelines, eh? It's funny whenever you take a picture in Haiti. I'm not sure so much with we ran into that in Dominican, but everyone wants to get in a picture whether they're working there or not. Yeah. This is Sunday morning at that little church. And I believe there's probably about 500 to 800 people there. We were able to sort of give a hello each one of us to the congregation. That afternoon we were going to go to Dessalines, where there's a hospital put together by Ian Van Norman, and I've got some pictures of that coming up. I'm not sure how many inside shots I got here. Again, this is one of the congregations where the men would sit on one side, the women would sit on another side, and the teenagers and the kids would sit in the middle. And again, this is probably around 8:30 in the morning, that service, and so I think it was over by about 11. The first service in Puerto Plata was 5:30 in the morning, and they were practicing. The group was practicing at 4 in the morning to get ready for it, and it was just terrific. But it was a 4-hour service. It wasn't. This is Dessalines. This is this hospital that Ian Van Norman has put the money to and has helped to build. And he's just a fantastic guy. He's 76 or 78 years old. He was down there. He gave us a tour of the hospital. He came down. He heard we were going to come down. There's Ian Van Norman right there. And that's Mike, the truck driver, in the back. Just a fantastic guy. He's got 2 projects on the run right now. One is an orphanage, and another one is a school. And he says him and his wife are getting pretty well burnt out. And he said, this will be my last thing. So he said, if you know someone that's looking to step into full-time ministry, come on down. So quite a few of us were eyeing that up, that's for sure. The Van Normans, no, this is inside the clinic. It's very, as you can see, it's probably what we would consider a doctor's office in the 30s maybe. Just a little table, and this is pediatrics here. The hospital, I believe, has 40 or 45 beds, and it's in a district that has at least 120,000 people. When they go there, they'll look after your medical operations and stuff like that, but all your regular care is responsible for your family. They have to bring in their own food and clothing and stuff like that for them and look after them basically in the meantime. Other than that, the hospital runs pretty well on donations. There was a group of 30 Americans there at Van Norman's place in the hill. This is a hill surrounding his place here. The water came down when the flood was on, and I believe it was about, I think she said it was close to 3 feet deep inside the house itself. And like you could see the mountain terrain, they're up pretty high. And so it was 3 feet deep inside the house, all the sludge and that. And both her and her husband and her daughter flew in from Canada and her husband to clean it all up. It's just a fantastic house. It's a mansion, really, is what it is. It will house, I think he said, up to 56 people. Like it's 2 actual houses in a row, and they're 3 stories high. It has its own water filtration system. It has electrical power generators because the power down there is just sporadic. It's on, it's off. You never know when it's going to be. What else did he have? He had 2 suites upstairs for visiting missionaries or doctors that were coming into the country, just so that if they wanted to get out of the situations or the areas that they were in for a weekend or a week or whatever, it was all made available to them. And the compound was all, again, wired in and high gates just so that they would have their privacy and security. The Van Normans are just very, very, very special people, very special. I could never say enough about them. And again, this is almost the end of the project now. We're just laying the final walls. I believe this is the Monday, because the Tuesday would be in traveling time. So that would be the Monday. That's sort of a part of the group, as you could say. Some of them were people that were hired, and then other people, like I say, they just wanted to jump into the picture. So I know the women were in there from the house in the back, and again, rightfully so, because every time you turned around, they were grabbing a shovel or a pail or something and getting involved. I think the next pictures are we were going to go to a resort on the way home for lunch. Now Larry was going to meet us because he was back in Port-au-Prince. There's a good shot of the building structure there done. He was in Port-au-Prince. He was going to meet us. It'd be probably about an hour and a half on the way. And again, it was a really nice resort. We could go for a swim in the ocean if you wanted to pay $15, and lunch there was $25. But you can see right there, that's what Haiti could be. It's much like the Dominican. It could be turned around. The one beach that part of the team headed out for one night, they said that there's a place near the ocean you could go and see if you wanted. This is Cameron. That's a beach photo. You know those couple there, Phil and Barb. Rick is in the foreground. He's from Pickering as well. That's Dale from St. Catharines. He works in GM. And here's the guys in the water. They're that's nice, clean water. The one beach that the group went to one night, the garbage was all still down the beach, and the pigs were roaming around it. So it tells you wouldn't just go in for a swim there, right? I was kind of hoping that I would have the DVD that the Pickering group put together, because they had some pictures of this beach, and you just wouldn't believe the mess that it's in. But again, when you've got other things, that looks like a Castaways, but that's actually our group. We weren't laying in the sun there. Again, Larry and Grant Zigsworth, yeah. and just some beautiful, beautiful scenery. I'm surprised that it has grown back as much as it has with all the flooding. Now that shows you there. That's one of the roads that is 14 feet high. I'll just stop it there. That's one of the roads that is 14 feet high. Like I say, we traveled 4.5 hours on that road, and I don't know how far up to the north it goes, but you can imagine the amount of fill that had to be brought in, probably from all the rubble. There were streets that we were on in Port-au-Prince, and again, they would be just nothing except for, like maybe a side street off of McDonald Street over here. They would just be a side street, and they'd be all crumbled in with building debris and everything else from the flooding and the earthquake, and they would literally have to take everything out by hand because you couldn't get near it with a vehicle. Everything had to be broken up, taken out by hand, just so you could walk down the street, let alone anything else. And there were bodies at the church in Port-au-Prince where we were at. The building had collapsed behind, and there was 2 missionaries, a missionary man and wife, and 2 church workers that were trapped in the building, and they died in the building. When they finally got them out of the rubble, there was basically nothing left. They had started decaying, so they buried them right on the site. That was in Port-au-Prince. I didn't put them on this one, no.
Both those were visa missionaries from the States.
Yeah.
One was a retired gentleman, I forget his name, he was 69, I think. And their bodies are buried right in the site where the building went in.
Yeah.
And the new building's going to be built around their gravesite.
Yeah, yeah. It is, now this is pictures here now. That's the presidential palace. That was 3 stories high, believe it or not. I think there's another picture in here too of it, and it's sort of got like a bell tower or something on it, and it's come down to about 1.5 stories high if it's in here. There it is, yeah. That actually used to be 3 stories high. Okay, and again, we saw nothing going on around it, so it's quite obviously they're not putting the money in putting this back together. They're definitely dealing with the people down there. This is the church that we went by. This church, believe it or not, the walls were probably 14, 16 inches thick, and all the rebar in it was like this. That's the only thing that's holding the outside walls together. The whole roof is collapsed in, and so are the side walls. And it's just amazing. You see this, and this earthquake apparently only lasted something like 2 or 2.5 minutes. So, anyways, that's my report on Haiti and. No, regular building blocks. We put we put up 1,600 blocks from Thursday afternoon. So we worked Thursday half a day. So Friday was a full day, Saturday was a full day, and Monday was a full day. We finished it off Monday afternoon.
So Dave, the building, like, if I've got it straight, what the decision is in terms of Haiti, and the Flinton folks are part of this too, is to target specific projects that we can rebuild that are both church and classroom that link with the child care ministry.
Yeah, it is.
So there was a church on that site.
Church on that site, that's
and
where
you
we
were rebuilding basically the school classroom in order to get the kids back into the school and for ICCM to be able to continue its ministry.
Yeah.
So how far north of Port-au-Prince were you?
That's 4 hours there.
Can you imagine what it must have been like down in Port-au-Prince, where the actual infarction took place? Unbelievable.
Well, there were places in Port-au-Prince, and I didn't put them on here. Maybe I should have put some of the camps on here, but you wouldn't believe them unless you saw them. Anyways, the camps plastic tanning and stuff like that you saw on the TV and stuff like that. I mean, they look like campsites around here. They're not like that down there. They had 2x4s with some plastic around the outside, and if they didn't have enough for a roof, then they threw a hunk of tin or a hunk of cardboard over for a roof. And there might be a family, say in a little area like this, there might be a family of 8 living in there. Well, that's everything. That's bedrooms, everything.
That's exactly right.
What's that?
There's been so much money
Mhm.
that has been directed that way.
Yeah.
Why isn't it getting where it needs to go?
I think the main reason there, because of all the old government that's there. The president himself cannot just move everything.
He quit yesterday, wasn't it? He quit. The new
Did he?
president quit. 5 months in, he quit. I think it was he resigned sometime this past week.
Oh, because the president, as far as I know, was doing well. He could. But you can't, you got 15 or 20 people that have been in power for 40 years before you, and you try and get them out of the way. Well, as soon as you try, you make one of those your enemy, you got all of them your enemy, and guess who's the next one on the hit list? So.
Blood is thicker than water.
But you can see, now Larry had told us about all the cleanup. So he says, that's where a lot of the money has gone that you don't see. Okay. In cleanup. Like I say, like that main road, they had to have a road for access for everybody to get in and out. That road, like I say, we traveled 4.5 hours on it. You could travel at 55 miles an hour. But that was, like I say, that's 14 feet above the existing road. That's a lot of fill. That's a lot of road. When we came down to the hospital, we passed places where there was it looked like pillars that they would use for a bridge. These things were 14 to 16 inches across. That's on the top. You know how our dividers are that go up the 115 and the 401. Well, picture those upside down. That's how wide they were on the top and then on the bottom. And these things were 30 feet long. And there'd be 4 of them in the row for a road to go across, I guess as sort of like a bridge thing. The water had just taken and just moved them just like that, just like they were popsicle sticks. That's the force of the water that came down through there. It's just unbelievable.
So Bruce's group, they're there now.
They're there now.
Obviously from Clinton. Where else?
Well, there's 5 from Clinton. There's a group of 11, and so the other 6 are from around.
Okay.
Some of them are from the team that went last year with Bruce, and there's some new ones. So you have, I'm just trying to remember, there are some from London, and there was Belleville, I don't remember, but they were around, and they were tradesmen, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
Bruce is a
welders
general
and-
contractor,
yeah,
right.
Welders, builders, all that,
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah.
So we're seeing some progress, is
Yeah.
what it boils down to.
And again, like I say, like for all the devastation, like I guess if you looked at like downtown Peterborough and say the old post office, that whole block there had just caved in on the road. How many days would it take with all the construction equipment that we have at our disposal? How many days would it take to clear something like that up? Probably a week, 2 weeks to clear it up. You can imagine with just pick and shovel and wheelbarrows and stuff like that they would have down there, They did move in big equipment, but I mean, like that picture of that church thing there, the walls are that thick, and they come down and they're maybe probably 3-story high. They come down in a little wee area where there's maybe 2 cars can get down the street. Guess what? Your street's gone,
Any other questions for Dave?
I just want to comment, was in Haiti before the earthquake, probably maybe 10 years ago now, and that road that you were talking about, it was full of potholes,
Mm-hmm.
and what they would call gravel
Yeah.
would be like stones.
Yeah.
And so you had to have 4-wheel drive to go over it, and you couldn't travel more than 30 kilometers. In fact, if you traveled 30 kilometers in like an hour,
Yeah.
your 4-wheel drive truck is what they had
Yeah.
So it was really slow going, and so what they've done is actually filled it in like you said and put a hard top, used actual pavement. There was not pavement
Yeah.
before there, so they have actually put that road in, which
Yeah.
would be very costly, just like you said.
Yeah.
And extended it farther north, and then of course off that, they go to Desalines off of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that all being hard top.
There would be a block, and what I would say by a block would be a good city block, probably from here to Ashburnham, would be nothing but tents. And I mean these tents were this far apart, and I mean no washroom facilities or anything else. Like I mean, they just come outside the tent and do their business. That's just how they're brought up, or how they were. And
Before the earthquake, there wasn't cholera down there.
no.
And that's just because of the earthquake.
Yeah. That water that was running beside the place where we were, that was just as crystal clear. You'd think that you were up to the north. Yeah, it was just as crystal clear, and yet they told you, you know, like the girl that used to take care of all our clothing and that, she would wash it in the river, and that was fine. You could bathe in the river, you just didn't swallow it. But they even warned us against that. They said, just don't even go near that water. So.
We just have no idea, you know.
Did anyone get sick today?
No one was sick. We ate. It was funny because everyone was afraid of what to eat down there, and when these ladies were making the stuff, we didn't want to offend them, so we ate it. And it was great. It was great.
The hot dogs.
I don't know what we didn't ask. We didn't ask what meat they were putting in it. We really didn't want to know, but the vegetables and the broth, whatever was in it, they had, you know, God. You could see God's hand on it, because, like I say, we could have been hurt many times. The road that we were traveled back and forth to the house on, I mean, it had potholes as big as a Jeep. Yeah, and again, the truck driver we had from out west, Mike, he just, I mean, we wheeled down there through there about 35, 40 mile an hour, and I mean, you got scooters jumping out in front of you, and guys running across. The funniest thing, this guy come by with a horn on his bike one day, and he had two goats tied to the handlebars, and they're just wailing away. I don't know how you could hear the horn on the bike, but that's how you travel. The one pastor came out to visit us one night on a Thursday? No. Must have been the Monday night just before we were going to leave. And he came out and he said, well, I got a taxi out, but he says he's waiting at the top of the hill, so I can't be long. And his interpreter was with him. And this guy's name, ironically, is Michael Smith. So, anyways, it wasn't Michael W. Smith. So, anyways, he says he stayed for about half an hour, and the girls had made cheesecake or something that day. I don't know where they got all this stuff. They brought all this stuff from Canada. I don't know how we got it all in, but we did. And so they had cheesecake, and they had two suitcases we were giving them full of supplies to be passed out. And so anyways, he says, well, we got to go because our taxi's waiting. And of course, right off the bat, we were thinking, okay, they got a taxi, so, you know, because both of them are coming out. So two guys helped them up the hill with the suitcases. Here, and I mean, he's a good-sized lad, you know. He's a good-sized guy, eh? And him and his companion, two suitcases, and the driver of the moped. in the pitch blackness, drive off into the night.
Oh my goodness! So, yeah. How many mission trips this is for you, Dave?
I think this is 8. Yeah.
You're gonna run her off at 12?
I hope so.
You're gonna, if Grant or Bruce, this man you just have to have him on a mission trip, because he'll do anything, and he can move anything either. He move and carry anything. So if Grant calls, you'll go again.
Oh, I would go back to Haiti in a minute. Just the people are just so fantastic there, And like I say, like the groups that, someone asked me one time, which was the best group you went on? And I said, well, how can you ask about that? Because I said, God handpicks them all. I said, we're all there for a reason. And I said, you just see so many different things. I've been blessed because I've been able to watch our own kids grow up through the different mission trips. And I think of people like Ashley and boy, I'll tell you, just...
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. I've known Ian Van Norman since I was a little boy. Ian Van Norman, Betty and Bruce knew him long before I did. His first Canadian Tire store was in Smiths Falls, Ontario. And he went west, bought the franchise for the city of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and got there in the boom years. And now he's 78, which is hard to believe, but he then began to dabble in land development. And he is an extremely, extremely wealthy man. But rather than keeping all this money that he created, and especially in British Columbia through land development, he personally paid for the building of this hospital. And he has had one huge impact on the whole country of Haiti. And Desalines is to the north. It's not in the area, the specific area that was ravaged by the earthquake. But the hospital there is, well, Dave said, one hospital, 40 beds for 120,000 people. And he has just, that's been his dream. And it's hard to imagine him 78 and saying, this is the last chapter for me. But boy, what a challenge for someone to come into, and not as an ordained person, just as a straight layperson, businessman, who believed God was calling him to be the steward. Holly talked about that last Sunday morning, to steward the resources that God had given him, and that's what he's done. And he and Alice are remarkable people that God has used and blessed in special ways. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Rachel. What a great, encouraging evening again. Let's stand together and receive the benediction. And again, I know that Rachel and Dave will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Lord, this has been just a rich treat, and we thank you for it. And we're so grateful that, again, we can see what you're doing in the world, and you would give us the privilege of being part of it. We're so thankful. Lord, be with Bruce and his team, and how beautiful that they would be there tonight when we would be together. Just bless them, Lord. Protect them, keep them safe from all the things that are possible health issues down there right now. Bring them home safely. Help them to get more than what they anticipated done, and help us to, again, to realize that the way to deal with the darkness is, rather than to curse the darkness, it's to light a candle. And there's one school, there's one church in Haiti that will be brand new, and will have a chance to start over again, because we, as a collective community of your people, said we can do something about this, and we should. So again, we just thank you, and we praise you for what we've heard and experienced, and we ask that you would take us in safety to our homes tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.